On this day in history, February 9th, 1555, Bishop of Gloucester John Hooper is burned at the stake. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, going over the history of the bishop. John Hooper, died 1555, Bishop of Gloucester and Worcester, and martyr, was born in Somerset about the end of the 15th century and graduated B.A. at Oxford in 1519. In 1538, a John Hooper appears among the names of the Black Friars at Gloucester, another among the White Friars at Bristol, who surrendered their houses to the king, and another as canon of Wormsley Priory in Herefordshire. But identification of any of these with the future bishop is doubtful, and in the sentence pronounced against him by Gardiner, he is described as Olim Monachus de Sliva Ordinis Cistercensis, i.e., of the Cistercian house of Cleve, Somerset. Before 1546, he was employed in the household of Sir Thomas Arundel, and Hooper speaks of himself at the period as being a courtier and living too much of a court life in the palace of our king. But he chanced upon some of Zwingli's works and Bullinger's commentaries on St. Paul's epistles, and after some molestation in England and some correspondence with Bullinger, he took refuge on the continent, reaching Strasbourg in the middle of the Schmalkaldic War. There he married Anne de Cercles, and later proceeded by way of Basel to Zurich, where his Zwinglian convictions were confirmed by constant intercourse with Bullinger, Zwingli's successor. In May 1549, Hooper returned to England. He at once became the principal champion of Swiss Protestantism against Lutherans as well as the Catholics, and was appointed chaplain to Protector Somerset. After Somerset's fall, he became Warwick's chaplain, and after a course of lectures before the king, was offered the bishopric of Gloucester. This led to a prolonged controversy. Hooper had already denounced the Aaronic vestments and the oath by the saints prescribed in the new ordinal, and he refused to be consecrated according to its rites. Cranmer, Ridley, Bucer, and others urged submission. Confinement to his house by order of the council proved ineffectual, and he spent some weeks in the Fleet prison before he submitted to consecration with the legal ceremonies, March 8, 1551. Although he had opposed Northumberland's plot for the exclusion of Mary from the throne, he was sent to the Fleet on September 1, 1553, on a doubtful charge of debt to the Queen. The real cause was his staunchness to a religion which was still by law established. Edward VI's legislation was, however, repealed in the following months, and in March 1554, Hooper was deprived of his bishopric as a married man. There was still no statute by which he could be condemned to the stake, but Hooper was kept in prison, and in December the Heresy Acts were revived. On January 29, 1555, Hooper, Rogers, Rowland Taylor, and others were condemned by Gardiner and degraded by Bonner. Hooper was sent to Gloucester, where he was burnt on February 9th, meeting his fate with steadfast courage and unshaking conviction. Hooper was the first of the bishops to suffer, because his Zwinglian views placed him further beyond the pale than Cranmer, Ridley, and Latimer. He represented the extreme reforming party in England. While he expressed dissatisfaction with some of Calvin's earlier writings, he approved of the Consensus Tigurianus, negotiated in 1549 between the Zwinglians and Calvinists of Switzerland. And it was this form of religion that he labored to spread in England against the wishes of Cranmer, Ridley, Bucer, Peter Martyr, and other more conservative theologians. He would have reduced episcopacy to narrow limits, and his views had considerable influence on the Puritans of Elizabeth's reign, when many editions of his works were published.